So here's an article that caught my attention that I had to share with you guys. This is from NewsHub. They report, Professor Jordan Peterson threatens to sue after critic calls him misogynist. Okay, so let me be upfront about something here. I am making no claim whatsoever as to Jordan Peter's misogyny. That's not the point of this segment. In fact, I'm not touching that. I'm not going anywhere near that. The point is the fact that he's suing. So let's see what they say. He has objected specifically, Peterson has objected specifically to the Canadian government's Bill C-16, which proposed adding gender identity or expression as grounds for discrimination. But his celebration of free speech seems to go only so far. All right, so let me pause there. Jordan Peterson has said, listen, since you're mandating me by law to refer to somebody as their preferred gender, I'm taking a stand and saying this is a dumb law because you shouldn't compel people to use certain terminology. And he even goes on to say, I would refer to trans people as their preferred gender pronoun, but I'm objecting to the fact that you're making this a law where you're saying, hey, you have to call them X, Y, or Z. So, in other words, his argument is purely on free speech grounds. Because, again, he goes on to say, I will call them by their preferred gender pronoun, but you have to get rid of the law because this is a violation of the fundamental principle of freedom of speech. So that was his objection. Let's continue. The Cut has reported that Professor Peterson has threatened to sue author and Cornell University assistant professor Kate Main for defamation after she criticized his best-selling book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. His lawyer, Howard Levitt, has demanded Assistant Professor Main, Cornell University, and Vox, which published an interview where Assistant Professor Main criticized Professor Peterson's large body of work, immediately retract all of her allegedly defamatory statements. Those statements reportedly include Assistant Professor Main saying, it doesn't seem accidental that Professor Peterson's skepticism about objective facts arises when it's conveniently anti-feminist. If the parties didn't retract, Professor Peterson would attempt to protect his reputation by, among other things, potentially initiating legal proceedings. Assistant Professor Main said the demands were a classic attempt to chill free speech, reports The Cut. But Mr. Levitt responded by saying there was a difference between academic debate and referring to Professor Peterson as a misogynist and impugning his honesty. Professor Peterson had also previously filed a lawsuit against Laurier University after he claimed 3 faculty members had defamed him there. So, he's pulling a Trump here. For those of you who don't know, Trump did the same thing. The Onion wrote a satire article, and he sued them and said, this is libel. Because in the article, it was unflattering of Trump, and they went after Trump. And so he sued them over a satire article. Trump also did this to Bill Maher. Bill Maher did a joke where the gist of the joke was Donald Trump needs to prove that he's not the love child of his mom and an orangutan. And the reason why he did that joke is, Trump was questioning Obama's birth certificate. And he's like, oh yeah, prove it. And of course, Obama did prove it, but Trump kept harping away on that. Kept harping away on the birther stuff. So, Maher said, look at your hair color. That doesn't exist in nature. So you need to prove to us that your dad's not an orangutan. And then Trump said, I'm going to sue you over that joke. Now, at the same time that Trump does stuff like that, I've seen it in recent speeches where he talks about, the censorship of conservatives on social media, and man, we really need to have a strong belief in freedom of speech. No, dipshit, you don't get to make that argument because you don't get to sue people over their speech and then say, I'm all about freedom of speech. So, Professor Peterson, you can go out there and argue against these outlets and say, you know what? You're wrong in calling me a misogynist, and let me explain to you exactly how you're wrong in calling me a misogynist. Here are the reasons why that's bullshit. Here's exactly what my argument is. Here's exactly how you're characterizing my argument. I think this is impugning me in a way that's unfair, I will now demonstrate that to you and show you. But you're threatening a lawsuit instead. So you don't get to be a free speech guy and then sue over speech you don't like. And by the way, there is no way to factually prove one way or the other on misogyny or racism or things of that nature. That is simply their opinion. Now, again, you could say it's a shitty opinion. You could say I totally disagree with your opinion and here's why. But you don't get to sue them over it and try to force them to take it down. You know what that's called? That's called censorship. We have a word for that. Well, it should be censored because there are things that are not true and bad. You're allowed to write things that are not true. You're allowed to write things that are negative opinions. I mean, and the thing is, Canadian courts are different than U.S. courts. In U.S. courts, I mean, this would be thrown out so quick. To steal from Trump, it'll be thrown out so quick it'll make your head spin. They'd say, why the fuck are you wasting our time? Get the fuck out of here. But I think what he's doing is he's suing in Canadian court because he knows that they have tighter speech laws. So they don't believe in free speech as much as we do. He's not a free speech absolutist. He's a hypocrite. Do you understand that? This isn't a matter of opinion. Again, you don't get to say I'm a free speech person and then you sue over speech. That's not a thing. That means you're a hypocrite and you're a fraud. Now, again, I want to be crystal clear. I'm making no claim as to whether or not he's a misogynist. Frankly, I don't know enough of his work to be able to comment on that one way or the other. I know some of his work. I don't know the exact argument that she made. I'd have to read it. I'd have to evaluate it. But that's not the point. The point is, to sue over that means you're a fucking snowflake, dude. Come on, how do you not see this? Do you have any idea? Listen, I've been a public figure to one extent or another. I'm not saying I'm as big as Jordan Peterson. I'm not as big as Jordan Peterson. He's certainly bigger than me at this point. But, you know, I started doing this full-time, 2012, 2013. I'm out there enough. I'm known enough. Do you have any idea the things I've been called? I've been called sexist. I've been called racist. I've been called everything under the... People have accused me of being fucking pro-genocide because I'm not in favor of intervention in Syria. So, if you're a public figure, you're going to be called bad things. That's a thing that happens. For you to sue over it means you're a snowflake who needs a safe space. And you certainly do not get to ever claim the mantle of I'm the free speech guy. Because you're not. You're just not. You're just not. You can't do that. And I've seen this a few times. Ruben's done this a few times too, where somebody writes an article and they call him far right, and then he tweets about it and shows the definition of like defamation or libel or slander or whatever. And he's like, he threatens legal action. Again, you don't get to be Mr. Free Speech and then say, I'm going to sue you because you called me something I don't like. I've been called everything under the sun. Never once have I thought I'm going to sue somebody for calling me something that I'm not, that I don't like. Never once have I thought that. People will probably call me shit right now in my fucking comment section, things I don't agree with. That doesn't matter. I don't even delete the comments. Never mind taking legal action. This is authoritarianism 101. So you don't get to be the anti-authoritarian guy. You don't get to be the free speech guy. And then you act in an authoritarian way. You act in a way that's hostile to free speech. I mean, he's just a fraud. This is what a fraud does. This is what a fraud does. Suing because you don't like that somebody called you a misogynist. And then, final point. When he says, well, listen, I'm doing that because they can't impugn my integrity like that. You know what impugns your integrity and impugns your honesty more than this? More than them, I should say? This, what you're doing right now. There's a little bit of the Streisand effect going on here. So the Streisand effect is, I guess somebody took a picture of Barbra Streisand's house, and then she sued the person because she thought, hey, this is my private property. You can't take a picture of this and put it on the internet. That's not cool. And she was trying to hide she wanted to hide the fact that that was her place, apparently. But the fact that she sued the guy meant the picture blew up more, and more people knew where she lived. So it's the unintended consequence is exactly the thing you were trying to avoid. That's the Streisand effect. So what he's saying is, you're impugning my integrity and my honesty, so I'm going to sue you. Well, no, the fact that you're suing her impugns your integrity and honesty more than anything she could ever write. So, listen, man, you're a public figure now. This is par for the course, bitch. And don't sue me because I called you bitch. This is par for the course now, son. You know, welcome to the public eye. Grow up a little bit. You got to have a thick skin. You got to get used to it. This is what happens. But certainly you can't do what you did and pretend like you're the anti-authoritarian guy, pretend like you're the free speech guy, because you're just not. And again, I'm not making a claim on whether or not he's a misogynist or any of that. And I've been clear from the beginning that with Jordan Peterson, I totally disagree with his religious stuff. I totally disagree with his political stuff. He's dabbled in some climate change denial fairly recently. But I actually don't mind at all his self-help stuff. Some people argue, well, the self-help stuff's a gateway to all the other stuff. Yes and no. I mean, even if it is, you have to evaluate the self-help stuff on its own merits. You know, that's like saying this really bad guy, I don't know, fill in the blank, a mass serial robber or something, he happens to love dogs. So, and he promotes that. So if you say when him liking dogs is a good thing, therefore the robbing is a good thing. No, don't make that logical leap because there is none there. You're making it up in your head. And I'm not comparing him. It's an analogy, so relax, everybody. I'm not comparing Jordan Peterson to a serial robber or whatever. I'm just saying that you evaluate each thing on its own merits. And so the self-help stuff, I think it genuinely helps a lot of people. And I think it might have a net positive effect in that respect. So I think that stuff is fine. I think it's relatively benign. And if it helps people, then it might even be a positive thing. So all that stuff is fine. But you bet your ass I'm going to come after him on his political stuff because he has no clue what the fuck he's talking about. And you bet your ass I'm going to, come after him when he's wrong with the religious stuff because, again, he's comically wrong on that front where he claims like, oh, you just think you're an atheist. If you're not murdering, you're actually Christian. Insanely stupid. But now we have another level of silliness on top of it all. The free speech guy sues over speech he doesn't like, which means, of course, he's not the free speech guy.